I'd like to introduce our district governor, Brent Hasty.
Great. Thank you, Ray. Wow. I just want to say thank you all for coming this morning. I mean, I know that it is a beautiful Saturday morning in California, and there's lots of reasons to be outside, but I also know that you guys all love your clubs and Rotary and want to continue doing the work you're doing. So I just want to say thank you so much. Today, we're going to be talking about the first part of strengthening your club in Reboot, and it's data collection. And I want to thank Ray Ward, past district governor, and our education chair for putting it together. Ray is just an amazing person who loves helping Rotary grow and expand. And the team and the panelists are just really brilliant people who know exactly what they're doing. And I just want to thank them all for all the work they're doing for us. So with that, I will turn it over to Mike Ranero, the founder of Passport One.
Forgot that I'm supposed to unmute myself, but I'm going to unmute myself there. Hey, thanks for reminding me, Brent. Thanks for passing that over. I'm looking outside now, and I'm out. It is too beautiful, so I am going to leave and enjoy this beautiful day. No, I'm not. I'm actually going to go through this. Brent, also, I think I want to cover quickly some of the objectives. Beth, if you could back up one slide, I want to cover the objectives of what we're trying to accomplish today real quick. All right, so today, we're kind of breaking down the whole Rotary Reboot process, and we're doing it in 3 different stages to try to make it a little more consumable for you as you try to make changes in your club. So what we're going to do is we're going to first go through the community assessment and break it down into its elements. Then we're going to move on to a club assessment and how to perform one of those. Give you some suggestions on maybe doing a club survey to learn more about your club and maybe unearth some things that you didn't know. And then talk a little bit about building the team that's going to be able to use all of this data and then drive it towards creating some sort of a plan that then you can use going into the next stage, which will be the next part in this 3-part series. Go ahead, Beth. All right, so the first thing I like to do whenever I approach something is I want to try to develop a why, right? Why learn something if you don't know what the why is that you're learning it? So here's the why, right? All right, so when we're looking to do a community assessment, we want to find out more about our community. And a lot of people are going to say, and they're going to push back by saying, well, don't we already know it? We live here. We've been in Rotary for 50 years. And that sometimes is the problem. You've been in Rotary for 50 years and the community has evolved around you. And because you've been in this bubble we call Rotary, or maybe even your own personal bubble with your friends and whatnot, you haven't really seen these changes that have occurred. And so we need to find out what changes have occurred in the community. And do that, we need to unearth some information. We need to unearth demographic information. We need to figure out what our community issues are and how do we find out what they are. And then we need to look for other people who are trying to do what we're doing that we can then partner with to affect change and help construct our plan with where we want to go. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill, who's going to go into this first part, this demographic information part. Bill?
Thank you, Mike, and good morning, everyone. I don't know how many of you were part of the Rotary Reboot that we did back in 2019, 2020 year. One of the things that I talked about at that time was about how knowledge is power and how the more we actually are able to know about our communities, the better we can serve our communities. And one of the things that I gave out at that time was a handy little handbook. I'm going to share on the screen now so you can see it. This is something that I put together for that event. And what I did was break down all the different communities where we had clubs throughout the district. This is publicly available information. But what you can see is that a club like Arden Arcade has a very different demographic than a club like Carmichael. And I'm just using these 2 as random examples. You can see that there's differences in the level of education, differences in ages of the community, differences in income, value of homes, how many people rent versus own, all sorts of things. And so when we talk about the communities that we serve, we have to realize that there is a real difference from one to the other. There's no one size fits all for this process. You know, back when we did Reboot, one of the things again that we stressed was that there was no one size fits all for what will work for your club, because each of your clubs is its own living organism. The members of the club have their own personality, their own preferences, right? Your own demographics, and the communities are all separate and distinct. And so my job today is to help you become aware of at least one tool that you can all use to learn what your community is. Now, pardon with me while I'm trying to share my screen again. This is the website that I used to create that initial pamphlet. And it's been 2 years since I used it. The information is all new. You might all be aware that there was a census that was being conducted last year, and the information is going to get updated again. But if you come into citydata.com, there's this nifty little feature where you can come down to an interactive map. I have set mine up to see what residents in each community are living with an income below the poverty level. So this is just one thing. There's a myriad of searches you can do. Population, household income, racial distribution, how long the average commute is. I mean, you can really do a deep dive. You know, what's pregnancy-related health issues? How many people have diabetes? What's the level of education? It really goes deep, and you can scroll in to a community. And here, I'll pull up the area roughly covering our district. You can see there's a color code that provides you information about all of the different communities. So again, if I was going to say, what is the issue of poverty within the district? The answer for your club is not going to be the answer for my club, is not going to be the answer for a different club. So if we scroll in even tighter, you can actually get demographic information to a census tract that's smaller than a zip code. So you can pull up information and say, okay, I'm interested in Citrus Heights. And based on the census block, they'll actually give you the number for the block. You can find it on the map. There are 13.2% of all residents in that block who are living below the poverty line. Whereas if I come down into Sacramento, 71.3% of all the residents in that area are living below the poverty line. That's a huge gap, right? How many of you knew that there was that big a block and that big a level of poverty sitting in South Sacramento? Well, then I would suggest that the Citrus Heights Club may have a different set of projects and priorities than the club that's serving South Sacramento. I would recommend then that when you go out and you talk to people in the community, you're going to have this information. You want to be able to talk to the community with an understanding of what the community is, right? Let's look at a different area. If we come up to the northern part, you can see Olivehurst, 47% poverty. Right? That's different than if we come up to Oroville, 23% poverty. Again, this is just one issue that I pulled out at random to use as an example for you so you can see the power that just a little bit of information can give you. If you take that information and plug it into your thought process, you're going to have a radically deeper understanding of what's actually happening on the ground in your community. And again, this is all information that gets updated year to year with rough estimates. It will get really updated with the census from last year once that information is available. But I highly recommend that all of your clubs do a look at the communities that you serve and try to dive in. And now I'm going to hand off to District Governor Brent Hasty.
Thank you, Bill. So you might be shocked at this, but Ray asked me to talk about government and nonprofits and schools. And as some of you will well know, I've been elected for a long time. And so one of the things I want to talk about is how different our communities that our clubs serve can be from where we actually live. So most of my club does not live in the district that we serve. And we serve the Oliver South Yuba County, which is a very poor community. And so sometimes we as members who live outside that area don't understand what's going on. And so what we found is having some of the people who represent that area come to our club or asking them questions about what's happening in that community. Because one of the shocking things about local politics is that most of the people who got elected at your local level within your community walked door to door. And so they actually have seen the neighborhood, they have walked it, and they have talked to people. And whether you agree with them or not, they're going to have some knowledge about what is happening within your community. And as everyone knows, just like past district governors who love to talk, most politicians have that same skill set. And if you ask them to come talk to you about what's happening within the area that you serve, I can promise you they will be there. I think the other thing we often forget is we think on the big scale of Rotary, it's a county supervisor or it's a city council member. But the reality for local politics is there are so many different seats. So you're going to have people who are on water districts. You're going to have people who are on school districts. And those are the people who can really keep you informed about what's going on. And right now, there's real challenges in what's happening in the schools, obviously, and having those people keep you up to date on what the needs are, so you'll get to know your community, is incredibly helpful. I can share with you that one of the things that's really made a difference in our club this year is we actually have a county supervisor, and we happen to have the school superintendent, the county superintendent of schools. And so every week we do an update on what's happening with COVID. And the good news is it's been a little better the last couple of weeks than it was the month before. So hopeful. But I think that it's really important that you get to know those people. I think that you need to reach out to those nonprofits that are in the community, that are serving the community where you are. We have a community that serves our area of Olivehurst that we keep in regular contact with, and pretty much to know what's happening within our community. And I think that those are really good tools that you can use. And really, there are so many people within those sectors of school and government that you can reach out to. And almost always, they are more than happy to let you know what is happening. And I think it will keep you informed. And what we've also found is reaching out to those people and having them come is really important, because many of them at least in our club, have become members. And I think lastly, one of the things that frustrates Rotarians more than anything else is getting a government person to come, and then they go through an election cycle and you never see them again. And that happens, and we've all been there. But I can also tell you there are people like me who show up who want to get elected when you're young, and you decide to become a Rotarian, and it becomes the most important thing in your life. So never shy away from asking them to be a part of your club or to be in your group, and to help you keep informed about what's going on with your community. And now I'm going to pass it off to Dee Dee Cordell of the Marysville Rotary Club. Thanks, Dee Dee.
Thanks, Brent. Good morning, everybody. So I was asked to talk about, from my background is in media and public relations. And so what are some other ways that you can kind of complete this community assessment? And if the goal is really to find out who your community is and what your community really needs, there are some great ways to do that through your local media. So it may seem obvious, review the local papers, not just the big ones, but the small community papers, because they often get much more to the heart of community needs in the smaller papers. Local television stations, their websites, their longer form interview segments where they really spotlight issues. So what are the community needs that they're highlighting? Animals, children, homelessness, forest health, cancer, what are those things? Just very briefly, I can go ahead and share my screen, and just as an example, I'll walk you through our local, let me share my screen. Okay, can everybody see that? The Appeal Democrat? This is the biggest paper in the Yuba Sutter area. And just at a quick glance, this is just today's local news section. Why SAC is Yuba Sutter Arts and Culture. Don't get me started on acronyms. I'll talk on a completely different tangent for an hour about acronyms. Nonetheless, they're having a special day of remembrance event. We've got, let's see, the Mary Aaron Museum with some projects going on there. There's street improvements. There's new panels on the outfield wall to be installed. There's some things that are going on. There was something else I saw earlier. Oh yes, the Marysville Plan street improvements. Availability of funding sources is key to moving forward. Wildfires issues. I mean, we're all close to areas that are having significant issues with wildfires. And so as you just kind of scroll through, Yuba Sutter Arts and Culture offering a new book club. There's a lot of different opportunities just at a glance. With just one day's look at a website, if you do a little more research, you can really find a lot of content there. Also, local reporters and editors can be a great source of research about your community because they're out there every day living a different aspect of it, and sometimes the worst aspects of it that need the most attention and the most help. So you could call or email contacts in the media. Their contact info is usually on the websites. They're always looking for story ideas, and so they make themselves very readily accessible. And you can pick their brains about the trends that they're seeing in the community in recent years that could provide some ideas. You could even develop like a brief web-based survey and email it to several reporters to find out what they're seeing and causes that they think are in need of a champion that they've heard about or learned about. The downside of doing it through a survey would be that like you don't have the engagement with the reporter per se, and that's an opportunity for you to tell them about Rotary, but perhaps you could ask in the survey if you could follow up with them for more information and then share with them more about your club. An obvious side benefit to reaching out and engaging with media is the recruiting opportunity, because it's really good if you could get a member of the press into your club. That will help increase how much visibility your club gets in the community as well, and keep you that much more connected to what the community really needs. But if nothing else, you can build those relationships that will come in handy later when you're trying to promote the club events. And by studying all this information, what's being covered in the press, you can also see who else is making headlines, what other businesses or organizations are out there doing good things. Might be an opportunity to partner with somebody for some of your community projects. And of course, with outreach to the media, you may find that you can land a media partner in some of your larger projects, the way that, think about like Toys for Tots and the food drives, that they often have a media partner that really make a big splash out of those events because they've partnered with whoever the nonprofit is that's doing it. So just some ideas of ways that you can do a little bit more research using resources that are readily available to all of us. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Mike, who will bring it all together for us.
Thank you, Dee Dee. Appreciate that. So let's take a look at what we just learned from the last three presenters. Okay, I think there's 4 takeaways here that are of paramount importance. One, Bill gave us a wonderful tool. That is an amazingly insightful tool. Hope you got the website there. He showed it to you. Pretty simple to access and navigate, as he showed. Very scrollable, very easy to use. Great way to mine data for the area that you want to impact. Takeaway number 2, Brent talked a little bit about being in an area and possibly having a club that is adjacent to or apart from the actual area where you're going to, that is in most need of service that you might want to focus on. We've kind of, as a district, talked about this. There is an area of our district that is greatly impoverished, greatly in need of some of our services and our help. We have clubs surrounding it, but nobody goes into that area. So this may help shine some light on that. Takeaway number 3. We used to be able to be an organization that went in and found a group that nobody else was helping, and we go in and help them, and we'd own that project and we'd be known for that project. In today's world, the likelihood of finding that somebody else isn't involved or engaged with that level of that need is highly unlikely. This is why we're talking about partnerships so much. All right, so there are probably other groups or other people trying to help out, because that's kind of how our society has evolved in a very, very good way, I might add. But it's made Rotary a little bit off to the side, rather than being that center focus group that is known for fulfilling needs and in helping out. We now need to look at partnering with others and finding out what services needed. And that's kind of what Dee Dee covered there. Dee Dee was saying, how do we find these projects that are going on? And she reminded me that we have a newspaper. I had completely forgot what a newspaper was, but now I remember, Dee Dee. Thank you so much. She actually showed us a newspaper. I thought they were only a myth, but yes, there are newspapers and there are stories of things that are going on and people that are doing things. And what a great way to find out who to help. And it's a great clue, right? And then last, but certainly not least is, okay, we need to document all of this information. And get rid of that. And so we have provided you with a tool, a little workbook, and you were all sent this workbook. It's the Rotary Reboot Workbook, and it has been slightly modified to talk about the community assessment here under this session 1. We've got some contents here that you can use. And once you read through this wonderful and insightful welcome and overview, you'll actually get to the heart of the matter where it talks about session 1 data collection. And this is where you can actually document all of this information that you find. So we're not expecting one person to do all of this by any means. We think that you're going to need to assemble a team and give different people assignments to go different areas. But this is a great document that you can use then to document. That's where you document things in a document. Document things that you find out by using the research tool, by examining the newspaper, by looking at and talking to your city officials and bringing them in. And again, that the fourth takeaway on that is, like Dee Dee said, we have a great opportunity here to get members, because as we engage with these groups and these people and show that we want to be part of that providing of assistance to the groups and the things that matter to these other groups and these other people, the more likely they're likely to identify with us and quite possibly join our team and be members of Rotary. But like I said, this document here is a great place to write down everything that you find out, take notes, and then use it as a common place then to refer to as you start the process of strengthening your club. So I am now, there we go. I'm gonna stop the share there so you can see me, because it's all about me, right? No, it's not all about me. It's about you guys. And so, so that is kind of bringing it all together with respect to the community assessment. We're now going to transition into the second part of the data that you're going to collect. Of course, this community data is extraordinarily important because it gives us purpose, right? It helps us define our purpose and what we're going to do. But are we ready for that? Have we done a club assessment to make sure that we have the people, the resources to address the needs? And for that, to kick that off, I'm going to pass it off to Ray. Ray Ward, your past district governor. Ray, who needs to unmute?
Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate everything you guys said. That is a really important part of starting the process and having the data you need comes from that community assessment. But now you need to do the second part, is you got to take that data and you have to look at your club and see where your club fits into that data. So the first thing I want you to take a look at is your community, the perception of your club in the community. When you're doing this community assessment, that's probably one of the questions you should be asking everybody is, you know, what do you think of Rotary? It's hard for me to believe, but it's true that here we are 35 years later, that some people still think that we're only an old men's club. We need to go out there and find out why that is. You know, why do the people have that misperception, or do they? Maybe your club has done a good job of breaking down and having, but you got to talk to the community to find out what they perceive of your club also. So that should, you know, this is where the club assessment actually goes into looking at what the community thinks about you. Also, if you don't know what members that may be visiting your club think about you, maybe you should shop your club. And what I mean that, it's just like a retailer does. They bring in someone that the people in the store do not know. They have those people have an experience in that store, and then they report back to management, you know, what that perception of the store was, whether it was positive, negative, or not. So maybe you need to shop your club too if you don't know exactly what people feel or think about when they come to your club. Next, I think you need to look at your community projects. Now, this may be hard for some of your members, but I think when you go back and you take a look at what you've done in the past, especially in the last couple of years, see where it fits with that community assessment you did. I'm going to take, kind of a project which a lot of clubs really love, and that's a dictionary project. And I've heard both ends of it. Some of the dictionaries are distributed into schools, and the teachers take those dictionaries and integrate it into their lesson plan. That's awesome. That's really making that project work for the students as well as the school itself. Some of the teachers in some schools I've heard aren't doing that. So maybe in those schools, if you did that assessment, maybe that's not the right project for them. But you won't know that until you compare what you're doing to what the community assessment said from the community members. The other thing I think you should do is look back at some of your older projects, because some of your older projects still have a lot of value in the community. But if your signs are all run down and dilapidated, people may not relate Rotary with those projects. So maybe you want to look at some of your older projects, and maybe you just want to update some of the signage and things like that around it. So you get the proper credit, and people say, wow, oh, that's Rotary. So really look at both your current projects and your older projects and see how they fit. Next, your fundraising. When you look back, and I know that a lot of us have struggled with fundraising in the last year because of the non-gathering orders that have been out. But if you go back and look at your older fundraisers, I'd like to ask you, how many new members or prospective members came out of your fundraisers? You have your members inviting other peoples. Did you promote your club at that time? Did people get excited and say, how can I help out? Whether it's just by working at a work project, giving you some extra money, or actually coming to a meeting and finding out more about your club and ask to join. If those things weren't happening, why not? Was the club really taking advantage, the full advantage of those fundraisers? Yes, you may have collected some money, but isn't it more than that? Isn't it getting that awareness out there to the community? Next up is your overall marketing. I think that before you move on to the survey, you need to see what you're getting out there. Is your webpage up to date? Is it showing the stuff you're doing? Is it inviting the people to come and participate either in your meetings, your fundraisers, or your community service events? How about your Facebook page? The same thing. Remember, in this digital age, if you're not doing a good job of marketing to the people out there, then when they shop you and they see that there's nothing been updated on your Facebook page for 3 years, they may just assume you're no longer around. So think about that. Let's take a hard look at it. Take a critical look at your marketing and saying, are we doing a good job? Or do we need to do something different than what we've been doing in the past? After that, you need to start matching needs. And what I mean by this is you just heard about some great ways of finding that data. What does a community need? Well, if your community really needs a 100-acre park that has sections for kids and baseball diamonds and a football field or something like that, or soccer field, that may be more than your club can do. I don't think there's very many clubs in our district that can actually handle a project that size. So you have to look at all this list of stuff that these community leaders have given you and said, what can we realistically do? With our funds, with our people power, how can we actually go out and solve some of the issues that we have? And then you're going to narrow down that list, because when we're talking about the club survey, which we're going to be doing next to get, the buy-in from the club members, we don't want to give them projects that we can't accomplish. We just want to narrow it down to projects that we think that the club can accomplish. So you may take a list of a couple hundred items, and that may be narrowed down to 5 to 10 that the club can really go after. At the same time, when you're looking at this, is that going to really meet the needs of the members? So that's why you're going to do the survey, because of the fact that if the members don't get excited about it, then why would they want to have buy-in and devote their time and treasury to it? So you're going to be doing all this, but the club assessment works hand in hand with the community assessment and eventually the survey, which we'll be talking about later. And then the last thing is, now you've talked to all these people, are there some partnerships? So maybe you're going to pick out projects or other things you learn from the community incentives that have the greatest deal of have a partnership with others in the community. I was doing some talks about diversity recently. And when I talked about diversity, one of the things that I heard was, we're having a hard time getting into certain groups in our community. And I asked simply, well, are you doing things that they care about? So that's stuff that you got from the community assessment. Maybe they're more interested in doing a certain type of thing for the community. Well, when you're doing a club assessment, if you're not doing those things, why would they join you? Because they would rather probably join an organization that fits those needs. I always say that, if you look at the school districts, why aren't you partnering with the PTA? Because all those people will eventually age out of the PTA, because their kids are going to go on to the next level in school, and they're no longer going to be helping the PTA at that school. If they still feel strongly about education and that school, Rotary may be a good place. If you're partnering together, they'll know who you are, and they'll figure out, hey, this is a great source of my time that I can still give back in the way that I found I really enjoyed. So take all the information you learned in the community assessment, then assess your club and find out what things match. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Raniero again, and he's going to talk about building your team. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Ray. And I really have to figure out how you did this. You have to teach me how to do this little head talking thing with the side. That's just absolutely amazing. And so, one, I'm a little mad that I thought we were buddies and that you would share that technology with me. So I'm actually extraordinarily hurt that you look really good and the rest of all of us look like, oh, look, we're in our houses. So that's okay, Ray. You look awesome and great presentation, and you're absolutely right on all those points. But you know what? Let's not forget that there is no I in team, okay? And I think we've all learned that before. And I've actually looked and I put it through spell check, and there isn't an I in team. So I verified that for myself and with Google, and it's been affirmed. And so one of the things that we need to kind of break is this whole, well, we have a new president, they'll do everything. They'll tell us what we need to do. They'll set up the agenda. They'll set up the calendar. They'll tell us what projects we're doing. They'll tell us the fundraisers that we're doing, and we'll just put it all on that person. No, succinctly put, no, we can't just put it on that person. And in my advice to PEs and people coming into the chair is, don't think that the weight of the world is on your shoulders. The first thing you need to do is say, look, I need to assemble a team here. We need this club is about the collective as well as the individual. It's a collection of individuals, and and the clubs function the best when that group of individuals gets together, and there is a certain group called a leadership team that is going to do that assessment. They're going to take that community information, they're going to take that club information, and they're going to then put it into an understandable and a format that they can then communicate to the rest of the club. But building that team is important, and it really starts with the president. That's the key task of the president, not to tell us what we're going to do, but to really be that supportive, that servant leader that comes in and says, I know there are people in my club that are passionate about different aspects of the things that we do. And I'm going to gather these people, and we're going to meet and work together to look at the data and then formulate a plan that's right for us. And so this team building must be centered around people that all share those values, share the values of we need to do what fulfills us, not only as a leadership team, but each and every member of our club. That will spark, that's one of your sparks, that's one of the keys to member retention, okay? It's been proven time and time again, if the organization thinks about the individual and promotes the individual and what the individual's passions are, what they want to do, what they want to learn, and how they want to be involved, the organization as a whole will rise up and benefit from it. It's only when we voluntold people, voluntel people, where we say, you know, I don't care what your needs are, I need this, and would you just please do this for me? I know you really have no interest or aptitude for it, but I just need to fill a body in this space. Nothing starts wearing down a club more than empty space fillings like that. So I highly recommend that you not do that, that you try your absolute best to get every individual's best interest at heart, and then use that. And if leadership is part of that, that's where you're going to start. All right. So you're going to start building that team. People that are interested in membership, people that are interested in marketing and getting the word out and posting and pictures and all of that, and people that are interested in service and putting those service teams together, and let them know they are not on an island either. As we do this, as we go into our year, we're going to make sure that all of the different key players are working together. So as we do things, nobody is on an island. All of the other positions are supporting each other. So membership is supported by marketing and community service. Marketing is supported by community service and membership. You know the rest. I don't need to continue on. All right. So that's a great place to start, but don't stop there. Once you've filled all your positions, right? All the little, you know, director of this, director of that. Okay, I got all my positions filled. I'm done now. Everybody else can just kind of stay over there and we'll tell you what to do. No, please don't do that. Go further. There are key members in your club that may not want to be in a leadership position, but are vital to the vibrancy and the strength of your club and your ability to solve problems in the community, to bring the club together. They are key members that may not want a position in leadership, but are leaders just by and large who they are and maybe what they've been in the past. So don't rule absolutely anybody in your club out. Get that word out in building your team. And again, the best thing to do as a president, and then as a board, and then as a wider team, is to then everybody reach out and make sure that everybody in the club is touched and has been given the opportunity to be part of this movement that is going to decide and determine the future course of the club. And as you kind of can get the feeling of here, if you do it this way, this is not going to be bound by 1 year. This is going to be a process that is going to give birth to something that is continuous, that is sustaining, that moves from 1 year to the next. And if this process can be embraced by the club, you have a greater opportunity of getting different people in leadership and moving people around and giving different people growth opportunities. Now you might ask yourself, okay, Mike, well, gosh, but we're a club of 14 people, or we're a club of 7 people, well, what do we do there? Well, I think to me, that is a little bit obvious. You are the team. You are the size where positions almost don't matter. Sure, there has to be a leader that facilitates the efforts of the club, but pretty much it's all hands on deck. And it's everybody meets and everybody says, where are we going? Okay, this is where we're going to go. And everybody works as a unit to increase and enrich that club. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying, look, the biggest thing that is going to either lead to success or maybe not as much success, is the ask. Okay. The ask to be involved should be the ask of what is going to fulfill you? What is going to fulfill you as a member? How do you want to benefit and make an impact on this club and your community? Why are you a Rotarian? If we can lock into that and we can truly get that out of each and every member, you have no absolute, there's no other option other than success for your efforts in building your team and making sure that the efforts are successful in what you do. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to Bill, who's actually going to go through the club survey. Bill.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I think Beth is going to switch the screen. Great. So when I was talking about demographics, I made the point that no two communities in our district are the same. I would make the argument, echoing what Mike said a moment ago, is that every club is different. And so when we're talking about doing a survey of your membership, we're giving you tools, but I hope these are tools that you will take and adapt to the specific needs that you have, that it's not going to be a one size fits all approach. If you look at the file that was sent by Ray through the chat, or it was sent in the email, there's actually a section regarding surveys, and it talks a bit about the various sorts of questions you can ask. But I think that there's a deep dive that every club needs to do on these issues on a somewhat regular basis. I'm a member of the Passport Club, and I happen to be the president this year. And we're a club that's been in existence now for 6 years. When this club began, it was supposed to meet once a quarter. So once every 3 months, 4 meetings in a year. Within, 2-3 years of meeting, it became clear people wanted more meetings. Now, in the results of a survey that I just did in January, the number one thing that people want is more meetings and more socials. So more opportunities to get together. So we have to be able, as the leadership team, to adapt to what the club is telling. And Beth, if you could give me the ability to share my screen, take down the PowerPoint. Thank you so much. I'm going to say right now, everybody who's here in this talk right now is familiar with Zoom. We're all on Zoom. And so again, if you look at the handout, there's a description of a variety of ways that you can do the survey. You can have it on paper, you can do it in an email. But when I did the survey of my club, I used Zoom. There is a function that allows for polling if you actually have a paid membership for your account. You can set up polling as a function of your meeting. And it's a handy little thing. So I'm going to share with you my screen as I try to, oops. I hope everybody can see my web browser. Zoom has a website where you can go in and schedule a meeting. And as part of scheduling the meeting, you have the ability to set up various settings that allow you to go in and set up a poll. You can ask as many questions as you want. I highly recommend you keep the questions somewhat simple and straightforward, and that you try to limit them. Now, the great thing that I like about the Zoom poll is that if you then finish the meeting, come in to the account management section to reports, you can come into the meeting reports and do a poll report. So you can actually save an Excel spreadsheet of all the results of the questions that you ask. And that is great. You can make it so that it's either specific, it identifies the people who answer each question, or you can make it anonymous. The poll that I did at our meeting in January was not an anonymous poll. It was a poll that allowed us to see what various people thought as we went through. And this is the report that was generated. So I've sort of shrunk the lines with the names and email addresses of the Rotarians who are answering the questions, but the information comes out like this. And these were multiple choice questions. In some cases, a Rotarian could pick one answer. In some cases, they could pick multiple answers. I asked, what would you change about our club, right? You might as well ask that big, broad question. And here you can see what we have. Across the board of the people who were answering, more socials and more meetings, right? Again, for a club that stresses the flexibility that we offer to our members and initially pushed that we have so many fewer meetings than other clubs, it seems like there is a real hunger amongst the people who are showing up for more chances for friendship, more chances to interact with each other, more service projects was another popular one. I asked some other questions such as, well, if we were going to be holding in-person meetings, where would you want them held? Now, we are a little bit different as a club because the Passport Club covers the entire district region. And so you can see we have a variety of answers. People want South Placer, Citrus Heights, Sacramento, El Paso Heights, right? But I think it's fair to put that sort of a question out to people. Are you satisfied with where we're having our meetings? Are you satisfied with the way that the meetings are being handled, the time, the food, all of those basic questions? Because I think a lot of clubs will get into autopilot where they'll assume that just because this is the time that we've always met, it's the best time for everyone to continue to meet. I asked, if we're starting our own foundation as a club, what would you like us to spend your money on? Right? I think that sort of fiscal responsibility to the membership and giving them a word in where their money is going to be going in the future is going to be key. If they know that dollars that they're giving have an opportunity to come back on projects that they like, they're going to be much more likely to give those dollars and get involved in those projects. We asked, what projects are going to interest you in the future? And again, you can see by far, the number one is youth. Everyone wants to get involved in youth projects in my club. And that's, I guess, not a terrible surprise, but it's a real eye-opener because a lot of the things that we've done in the past have pushed, like Rise Against Hunger International, food insecurity, and food insecurity did come up high. But I think we as a club need to change our focus and maybe do some more work with Bryla, do more work with literacy projects, similar to like the Book Buddies project, which I and some of the members are involved in. I think that's going to be a real shift that my club is going to have to address as we move forward through the rest of my year and into the next year. The reason why I'm sharing some of these results with you is because your survey is going to be different. The challenges that you face are different, and that's okay, right? We all have the same basic wants. We want a strong club, but what a strong club looks like for Passport is different than Sacramento, is different than Oroville, right? And I think when we have this discussion with each other as a club, it really brings it together, which is the second reason why I really liked the Zoom format for these polls, because we were all together in a Zoom. I could put the poll question up. We could talk while the poll question was up. We could then share the results of that poll with the members and have an immediate live discussion about what they want. Why is that an issue? Where do you want to go with that, right? People who wanted to interact and wanted to be front and center in the conversation could jump in. So if someone said that they wanted to have an international project, great. What sort of an international project are you thinking about? What's the scale that matches what our club can do? Let's have that conversation right now. We don't need to wait a month or 2 months until we can schedule a time. Let's do it in the here and now, and let's get that done. I think having that sort of a response from the leadership in the club is empowering to the members. It gives them a sense that they really are the club, that the club recognizes them, values them, wants their involvement going forward. And I think for retention of membership, that is going to be a key. You have to have the ability to show people the place that they have, right? I know when we talked in all the membership talks that I've done over the years, one of the pressing issues has always been retention. And if we're going to retain members, the key, I believe, is to let them know we value you as a Rotarian. We want you to be a Rotarian. We want to keep you as a Rotarian because you're our friend, because we're in this together and we have shared values and we're pushing forward together. That idea of the teamwork. And the survey is a great result. I will say, I think that, you know, the meeting to me as a president was a little eye-opening because I asked a couple of questions. You know, the last year has been unlike any other. I have not had a full in-person club meeting, right? I think a lot of the other presidents are in the same boat that I am. I'm tired of Zoom just like everybody else, but to have members actually confirm that they appreciated Zoom and that they appreciate the steps that we were taking to be safe. Having members specifically say that if we can keep it as an option going forward, that they would like that because they like the flexibility of not having to drive an hour to get to a meeting. They want that option to be able to attend sometimes in the future more flexibly, right? These are great things to know so that for the second half of my year, I can continue and that the presidents who come after me will be able to keep these systems in place so we can address all the needs of the club as it changes. Remember, when I went to PETS back in March, I sat in on a panel regarding flexibility. And I'll point out Mike Ranero because he was one of the trainers in that session. And someone asked, you know, what does this mean? What are we supposed to do? What could a regular Rotary Club do that's different from like what Passport does? And the speaker who was sitting next to Mike grabbed him and said, you know, what this guy has done is broken the model for all of the clubs, not just Passport. All clubs right now have the flexibility to make themselves what they need to be to meet the needs of their community and their membership. So if you want to keep attendance as an issue, great, but you don't need to. If you want to change meeting times so that twice a month it's early and twice a month it's late, you can do that. If you want to change how you structure your membership, you can do that. Whatever you want to do to keep your club strong, you can do that. And that's what we're all here telling you today. We're here to try to empower you so that you understand. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to offer you a path for you to discover what your club can do and what you can be going forward. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dee Dee because I believe we're going to be trying to do a Q&A.
Thanks, Bill. That was great. I love the idea of using Zoom for a live survey because, you know, if you just email it out and get the results, you don't get any of that context that you can get from the live discussion. That's a really good idea. So we are available now to answer any questions that you might have. You can type your questions into the chat or you can raise your little electronic hand. If you don't know how to do that, you can click the little button that says reactions. And then it looks like, you know, like a clap, really. You can do that.
Hey, Dee Dee, I do want to make one comment just as a wrap up. I want to stress that, you know, we're giving this education. We've kind of gone on with this reboot thing now. As Bill said, he kind of kicked us all off and it was a 3-in-1 that he kind of led and that Ray and I helped them out with. But that led into when I became district membership chair, I went on a speaking tour and any club that wanted me to speak on Rotary Reboot, I would. The first club that asked me to speak to them was the Rotary Club of North Sacramento. I don't know how many of you attended the award ceremony, but the club that won the district governor's bell this last time was the Rotary Club of North Sacramento, a club that literally 2 years ago was wondering if it was going to continue to operate. Now, coincidence? I don't know. You might want to ask them. But I think that they embraced what we had talked about. And that club did not win the governor's bell for a gimme. In fact, I don't think Ray even knew that I did a talk there, the very first talk I did on Rotary Reboot. So just throwing it out there. Dee Dee?
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so again, if you want to ask a question, we do have one question, but I want to just explain how the easiest way to do it. If you click the participants tab at the bottom, that's actually a better hand raising because it'll stay. And there's literally underneath the list of participants, there's a little button, little green or a little blue hand, and it says raise hand. So you can raise your hand that way. So feel free to ask some questions in the chat or by raising your hand. And we have a question from Peter Schroeder that says, how many questions should be in a poll? Bill, you want to tackle that?
The way that I tried to structure it was, first of all, I devoted the time instead of a speaker, so roughly 25, 30 minutes to the polling. And I broke it down by section, sort of a section about membership, a section about fundraising, a section about, the projects that we were interested in doing in the future. And then I tried to limit it to 2 or 3 questions per poll. So if I was talking about where we were going to have meetings, it would be 2 or 3 questions. If we were talking about projects that we were interested in, 2 or 3 questions. That way we sort of hit each topic and got out in about maybe 5 minutes. Now there were a couple of times where people had more to talk about and that sort of slowed things down. But I think the dialogue is good and it allows me to know what people find more important.
Awesome. Anybody else have any additional thoughts on how many questions in a poll? Okay. Do we have any other questions? I don't see any hands raised. And I think we've got about 2 minutes left, so we do have time. No? Well, then you made my job so easy. If with that, I will go ahead and hand it back over to Brent.
All right. Thank you, Dee Dee. I just want to say thank you for coming this morning. I know that it's, again, a beautiful day outside, but I also know that Rotary Reboot and learning about your community and learning about how it's going to interact with your club. And I think more importantly, almost, is learning about your club. Sometimes we've been in Rotary a long time, we forget to ask. And so, Bill, I just want to thank you for the Zoom polling. I think that's a brilliant idea. And I'm looking forward to our club doing that along with many of the others. We've had a year that's different. And I just can't thank you all enough for continuing to work and make Rotary better every week. I hear about amazing things that clubs are doing and how they're going through this process and they're still working within their community. And I just got to tell you that you really do make Rotary FFFN amazing. And thank you for coming this morning, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.
Brent, before we leave, we have some homework for you guys out there. Remember, this is part 1 of a 3-part series. So if you could bring up the homework again, build a team, start doing those community assessments, do the club assessment, do some surveys, and start organizing your data, because we're going to be coming back to you for Rotary Strengthening Your Club Part 2, where we're going to actually help you take that data that you collected for your club and put it into your strategic plan for the future. So it doesn't end here at this meeting. It only begins. So hopefully we'll see you next month on the 13th, where we can start putting together a strategic plan for your club and make your club that much more successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ray. And as you can tell, Ray is the education chair and Brent is the one who forgets to do homework. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon. Have a great weekend.